I'm Esther Braithwaite from Esther Joy Knits. Today we're continuing our series on how to make a Pretty Izzy doll. We'll be working from my Pretty Izzy dolls pattern, but these techniques work with any of my designs. Today I'm going to show you how I seam and stuff my dolls. If you've been following along, you should already have knit the body of your doll, and in the last episode we learned how to pick up stitches around the waist and knit the skirt. If you've been working in the round, you'll have something that looks like this. But if you've been knitting on flat needles, there's one more step we need to do before we can stuff the doll. It's open in the back, and we're going to need to seam up the edges before we can continue on with our work. To do this, all you need is a darning needle and a pair of scissors. We're going to use a mattress stitch to seam up the back of our doll. This creates an invisible seam that'll be hidden when we finish up our final, when we stuff and finish the doll. We're going to work from the top of the head down using the yarn, the tail that was left over from knitting our hair. And when you knit the mattress stitch, you're going to be working into these horizontal bars. You can see them there. These horizontal bars between the first and second stitches. Okay? You notice our first stitch can kind of curl and be a bit wonky, and that's going to give us a nice straight edge when we finish our seam. I'm going to find, and it's a bit tricky where we've picked up stitches here, but I'm going to find that first horizontal bar in that first stitch, and I'm just going to slide my needle underneath it and pull it through. You don't have to pull this very tight. We'll tighten it up as we go along. Now we're going to go back and pick up from the same space on the opposite side of our seam. Okay, and again, we're just sliding right under that bar in between the two stitches. We're going to continue like this, alternating from side to side. Picking up a bar from the left. And then picking up a bar from the right. And you can see that I'm keeping my stitches here pretty loose. Makes it a little bit easier to work with. And after you've done a few stitches, you can just pull your yarn in the direction of your seam, and you'll notice that that seam closes right up, and you can't even really see where we've been making those stitches. So you can just keep working this mattress stitch, sewing up that seam, and even when you get to the contrasting color here, the face and the skirt, I'm going to keep working with my same strand of yarn. When we pull that tight, that seam is not going to show up at all on our doll, so it's not going to matter that we're not using the same color of yarn. So I've finished working my stitches. I'm going to all the way down to the end of the feet. And when I pull that seam tight, that yarn just disappears into the fabric. Okay. And we've got a nice smooth seam up the back of our doll. We can finish off this brown yarn. We're done with it. We still have the open flap of our skirt, and we're going to close that the same way that we seamed up the doll. We've left a tail from finishing the skirt, and again we can just thread that onto our needle, and picking up the horizontal bars in between the stitches, we're going to work back and forth. It's going to be a little bit trickier on the skirt just because of the lace pattern, but the practice is exactly the same as we did for the body of the doll. We're just going to sneak over and pick up one of those horizontal bars and then do the same thing on the other side of our work. Sneak over and pick up that bar between the stitches. And just keep doing that back and forth until you've closed up the skirt of your doll. So give that a firm tug to finish your seam. And then you can finish off the end of your yellow yarn in whatever method that you prefer.